Okay, good afternoon, families. This might not be the afternoon for you, but it is for me, so I'm going to say that. Good afternoon. I'd like to um, make a video today that is specifically aimed at the men. Okay, so ladies, although this isn't aimed at you, it can be very helpful for you to kind of get an understanding of uh, um, what's going on in the development of men as far as a father to sons, because here we're looking at the spirit of Elijah working on us families, and in that the fathers or the men are being fathered by God, and there's a specific process that God the Father puts his sons through. Hebrews talks to us about that. He says, hey, God disciplines us just like our earthly fathers disciplined us. And there's so many things about that are significant. Sigmund Freud, even secularists would understood his quote here. I wrote it down so I'd remember it. Sigmund Freud was famous for suggesting that no one lost his faith in God without first losing faith in his own father. So there's something there that's significant, and anybody can understand that. The father, whether you love him or you hate him, you want, it's this need. You want to love and have a relationship with your father, and all of us are broken in some form or fashion. But there's so much to that fathering role, and God makes a big deal out of it, and we need to as well. So, fathers, men, the number one thing we can do is to enter into a relationship with God and specifically ask. If you've never asked God to do this in your own life specifically, I am begging you to do this and open up your heart to this truth and get the framework in place for this. But what you want to pray is, God, would you father me? I mean, would you get me oriented as to what it is you are doing? Would you father me and help me understand what it is you're doing so I can try to get into agreement with you? I mean, it's hard anyway. It's going to be hard, but if you can get into agreement with him and begin to speak this type of language, start working with him. And fathers, you can look at your own kids and understand. You should have an understanding of where they are in their life, and you're trying to get them from where they are to the next level. And the Bible says, hey, if we're evil, the Bible just goes and says, if you're evil fathers aren't going to give a snake to your kid when he asks for something good, or when he asks for bread, you're not going to give him a rock. I mean, you're an evil father. What do you think the perfect father would be doing? So see, in other words, what we're saying is God the Father's saying, hey, you want to father your kids because I father my kids. And so you need to be understanding that as your Heavenly Father, I am initiating you and taking you through stages of development. And I want to take you through it right. I want you to learn the things. I want you to get from my heart those things that you need in your heart. And so it can help you tremendously. Just that thought, that new thought that God's fathering you through something. How many of y'all have gone through some things and you're just like, we get to, we're in it and we're just like, God, what are you doing to me? What is going on? This doesn't make any sense. Everything's falling apart. I don't understand. I'm dizzy. I feel like I'm upside down. I have lost my orientation, right? I don't know what is going on. Would you help me make sense out of this? And so what I'm trying to do for us today is get us some framework up for orientation. Orientation has to do with, when you show up at a huge mall somewhere, the malls are going, there's few and far between. The age of the mall is over, but I went down to Orlando a couple years ago, and they have this massive mall, and it was packed. And so you walk in there to that mall, and you've never been there, and it's a huge mall, and there's people everywhere, and you're like, where are we, and where are we trying to go? If you're trying to go to a specific store, you got those little kiosks up there with the levels and all the stores, and that little dot that says you are here, and you're like, oh, okay. See, and that's for orientation. Okay, so we need orientation in life a lot of time. We need to know, okay, I am right here, and I need to, and I'm going this direction. Okay, I'm understanding now. I can start wrapping my head around where I'm at and where I need to go. I can get empowered. I can get some hope because I'm understanding now. And in the process of God and what He does when He gets us and makes us His own, He raises us up. And to raise us up, we have to face things we don't want to face. We have to go through things we don't want to go through, typically. But that's life, right? That's the way that we're shaped. And if you look at all of the men of God and women of God in history and in the Bible, you'll see they went through process. I mean, look at David's process from beginning to end. Look at Jesus' process. Jesus had 30 years on this earth, 33, but 30 that were outside of ministry, and he had a rough life. I mean, it was not a wonderful life, as far as the things that happened to him. Now, we know on the inside he was whole and intact, so he had God's emotions working in him. But as far as it being some easy, plush, wonderful life where everything went his way, no, he had to face some very difficult challenges, and that's just the way that it is. You can go through all the biblical characters and see these things. So, having said that, trying to give us an understanding, there's something that I have gleaned from for many years now in understanding the stages of masculinity. And so I'm going to share those with you men, and then try to give you an understanding of what God may be doing to you. So the first stage would be the stage of the beloved son. Okay. Now there's no, the time frame on this is not exact. It's not like you're in this from 0 to 7. But I'm going to say that. I'm going to say 0 to 7 is like the beloved son stage. And in this stage of development, what your heart wants and needs, because you were created this way, is just to be loved, right? Just to be the beloved son. What that means is essentially that it's not about what you can do, right? Or that you're good at something, or you have something to give, or something to offer. It's just that you are loved, right? My little 2-year-old right now, Samuel, he can't do much, right? He can be cute sometimes. He makes us laugh quite a bit, but he makes us really angry quite a bit too. He's, yesterday we're trying to take a nap, and he's taking a marker down the walls, and here we go. All right, so that can get you a little bit upset. So Samuel can't do much for us, right? But goodness sake, I love that kid, and my delight is in just the fact that his name is Samuel and he's mine. And so, I spend a lot of my time just delighting in him. When I come home, he's excited to see me. I'm excited to see him. I lift him up and love on him and just let him know I delight in your presence, son. Not because you can do anything for me, because you can't. But my delight is in you. And that's a stage that every single human being needs. And that's honestly a stage that we never get over. And as far as God the Father goes, when we get born again, that's something that you need to get every single day. The Bible talks about the light of the countenance of God. The light, the Aaronic blessing is that. That his face is shining, and that the blessing of God is coming off of the light upon his face. That's the beloved son. That's the Father saying to us, you are my beloved. And God says this to all of us. You can't do anything for me. Like he's saying, look, you can't do anything for me. I just love you. I want you. I don't need you. I want you. God says, I don't need you. He's got it, guys. He really does. He wants us. Now, are there things we get to do? Yes. But he doesn't need them done. It's not like hanging in the balance, as far as God's concerned. He's going to get the job done because he is going to have agreement on the earth because he's just that good, and he's going to attract people to him, and they're going to be falling in love with him, and they're in that love going to begin to do sacrificial acts of love. But those are things that we get to do, not that we have to do. And God doesn't need them done. He just wants us. And in our relationship, there's going to be quite a few things done, So, beloved son, stage 1. Stage 2 is maybe that 8 to, I don't know, 13, 14, maybe age. Again, these are not hard and fast things, but these are stages. The cowboy is the second stage. The cowboy is the stage in which you're trying to test your limits, you know. You're going out in those early adventures. You know, as a kid, it was sort of like, you know, taking you're riding your bike down to the corner market, you know, and getting a drink and coming back, or back in the day. I'm saying this for me, back in the 80s or 70s, even late 70s, you know, we could do that. Now it's like, you're not riding your bike anywhere, son. You're gonna stay right here where I can see you. It's a different world, right? But we're talking about pushing. You know, for my boys, it's like they're going outside and they're walking in the woods, and they're, you know, they're away from us, even though we know where they are. And you're beginning to do those adventurous type things. You know, let's go out and build a fort. You know, let's go out and do X, Y, and Z. Let's go make a path somewhere. You know, let's that. So you're pushing those limits, and those are things that boys need to experience. They've got to do that. That's the cowboy. That's sort of the beginnings of the adventure. Now those adventures go up and up and up and up as we go older, but that's a significant stage that needs to be. The question of that stage is, do I have what it takes? You know, can I do this on my own? And dads need to initiate that in their sons. The next stage, we will say, I've got it written down here so I won't forget, the warrior stage. Now this is a big one. The warrior stage is maybe 16 to 24, around in there. It's where you're beginning to just learn flat out discipline, right? That there's a job to do and you've got to do it, and it doesn't matter how you feel. Your feelings have nothing to do with it. You have a goal, and you understand what has to be done to accomplish that goal. There's daily things that need to be met in that, and you just get it done, buddy. It's just done. Doesn't matter. You just do it. Disciplined warrior. Now this is a big one, man. It's one that has to be accomplished, and it has to be done well. It's a character shaping season in a young man's life, and nowadays it's becoming few and far between that people really get solidified in that warrior stage, and that's one of the reasons why we're not seeing warriors on the scene, because we got way too many parts of our inner life that haven't been, you know, wrangled down and properly assimilated into purpose-driven life that's goal-oriented, and you're able to set a course and just hammer it out and get it done. So the warrior stage. After that, and after you've kind of successfully done some of these things, now you're getting ready to enter into the lover stage. That's where we're born for that. It's in us to want to seek out the woman, you know. But again, man, you don't want to be entering that stage too early. This is the stage where men are finding their significant other, who they know who they are, hopefully, and they're not trying to get validation from a woman by seeking after, which many men do. Women can't give validation to men; they don't have it to give. Men have to be validated by other men, or by God Himself, God the Father, through men. Masculinity bestows masculinity. You can't get it from femininity. It just can't happen. But many men are trying to seek after women to try to get them to give them validation about their manhood. You can't get it there. That's you're going to be chasing your tail on that one. So this stage is really critical, but it's in there. It's a very important thing. It's where you're ready to sacrifice, right? You're ready to go out and climb the highest mountain, you know, do those things for the woman, you know, that are really important for you as a man, and to also kind of complete what God has put in the heart of woman and man, because together we become one, and in that synergy, man, there's some power for family that's necessary in the roles. But the lover phase is that next phase. And then after the lover phase is the king phase. And this is where our adulthood is. That when you become a king, kingship it's a metaphor. We're not actually kings, but this is when you're in the king phase. You've been given some realm, from which your influence is being exerted, hopefully in a good way. Now here's the issues. If you've not been validated by a man, if you don't feel like you're the beloved son, if you've missed some things along the way, that's going to affect what kind of a king you are. Okay, and that's what this whole issue is about. We got a lot of kings, a lot of us men who are undeveloped. We missed some things along the way. We didn't get some things somehow, some way. Either we didn't have a father helping us do this, or we rejected the father that we did have who was trying to do it. It can go both ways. But we're undeveloped. And honestly, all of us are undeveloped. There's no way around that one, right? So these are things we need to understand, though, in the stages. So most of you guys are in the king stage right now. And so what that means is, hey, you are the king of a home, so to speak. That doesn't mean you rule with an iron fist. It means you should be ruling with influence as a servant. You rule as a king who has a servant's heart. That's the way Jesus did. He didn't rule over people, although he could. He has a servant's heart. He wants to bless the people. He wants to protect. He wants to use his strength for good, for protection, and for lifting up and building up those around him. And that's the type of king we all should be. But if you're self-centered, if you're insecure, if you hadn't had some of your inner needs met, you're not going to do so good at it. You're going to be harming people, hurting people, and that's what many of us are doing. That's what I've done. The good news is there's a restoration, and that's why I'm giving you this video, to try to get you oriented into the restoration that God the Father is doing to you as his son. Okay? So then after the king stage, and that king stage can go from 25 to, all the way to the end of your life, really. But at some point you need to be entering into the sage stage. Now I can't say much about this because obviously I'm no sage. But the sage stage is where you have you relinquish your realm, so to speak. Maybe you're a business owner, maybe you're a pastor, maybe you're whatever rank in your kingship stage that you had wherever you were. And there's tons of different ways to be a king. It's not about how powerful you were or how big your this or that was. That's not the point. It's the quality of the influence that you're giving in the space that God has given you is really what it is. At any rate, the sage stage is where you have this accrued wisdom over time, and hopefully you've looked back over that time and said, hey, here's a mistake there, Father. God, you've allowed God to father you, and understand it's not about how big you are on the outside, it's about how big you are on the inside. And so the sage stage has to do more with actually getting bigger on the inside than on the outside. And it takes wisdom to get there, because we put so much emphasis on how big and bad we are, what people think of us out there, the type of weight and influence that we're exerting in our environment. The older you get, I think, and again, I'm not speaking as a sage. This is just things that I've gathered from reading. But you begin to let go of those things that you used to think were such a big deal, and maybe you start emphasizing caring and nurturing on the inside a little bit more, and thinking with greater wisdom, and as time gives you that kind of wisdom. So those are the stages. Now, I wanted to say that because I wanted to say this, that we've all got to be healed, right? Be restored. That's the good news. Hey, it doesn't matter where you're at today. The Lord wants to take you from where you're at and heal you, make you whole. Well, here's how He'll do it. As your Father, He's going to take you through those areas that you missed, those undeveloped spots, whether it's in the beloved son stage, it's in the cowboy stage, if it's in the warrior stage, wherever you missed it, He's going to take you back and have you learn. And so I'll give you my own personal testimony here, and this has helped me get oriented in what God is doing to me in my own life. But I really missed out on the beloved son stage, and I'd say most all of us do that. It's hard to get. It's hard to gain. It's really hard to understand that God just loves you for you, not for anything you can do for Him. That's a tough one to get. God's got to really get in there and get that's. He's got to get that in there deep, and that one doesn't come easy. You've really got to make some effort to sit before the God the Father and say, God, would you tell me that you just love me and that you like me? Oh man, that feels good when He can start see, that's relief. That's like I can get off the treadmill of life. I don't have to work, and be stressed and all that comes with that. You can get off that treadmill, just relax in the fact and the truth that He died for me and He loves me and He likes me. He likes the way He made me. He's the one that made you. He likes that. And, to get into self-love in a healthy way, to be at peace with yourself. Let Him heal that up. But you're going to need that on a daily basis. You really need to be seeking the Lord in that beloved Son stage. So that was one big one for me. I seek the Lord on that every day. The second big one is the warrior stage. Man, I really ejected. It was my 15 to 25 time frame, that 10-year period that I just totally went unhinged, which meant I followed my every sensual desire that I had. I just went to the max with it. So that's totally undisciplined living, right? And I missed that formative stage, which has been a huge thing to overcome in my later life as I figured out, man, you got to be disciplined to do anything, and I didn't learn it at all. So that's been a huge part of God's fathering for me and initiating me in that area of discipline. So for me personally, and that might not be one for you, you might have done a pretty good job in that area, but I'm just saying, I know I went off track big time in that area. So that's an area that God's initiating me constantly in, discipline. So that's a big deal for me. So here's what I'm saying is, you need to know sort of the epics of your life, kind of block it up. You could look at it in terms of elementary school, junior high and high school, that kind of a stage. Lots of things happen right in there. College years or your first career years, when you got married, early marriage, when you first had kids. You can break up your life in epochs, so to speak, and you need to take a look at what happened. Where have you come from? What happened along the way? What are the things that you got stung with that really shifted the course of your life? That you took it hard. Maybe you got the wrong interpretation about something that happened, and the enemy's just been using it against you ever since then. See, those are the issues God's going to be taking you back through right now, because God has the capacity to run you through some things or to allow life to happen around you that brings up those issues. Now, does that make sense? And He's going to do it. I've heard it said that, in life, with God, you just keep going around the mountain and you keep taking the same test until you pass it. So you don't want to lose heart. You don't want to lose heart and stop being initiated, because then you've just given up on becoming whole and becoming healed and being restored. God is committed to restoring you to what He had in mind to begin with. Now listen, I'm saying all this to say this, fathers. Wherever you're undeveloped, you cannot give that to your sons or your daughter. That's a lack of development in you, and God can't get through you to them. See, so that's why it's so critical that you are being restored so that you can be a part of giving to your kids what they need, so you can walk with them through these stages, because they need this. They need you for this. They need some kind of a male figure. Now, many of us didn't have fathers, but maybe you had a grandfather who stepped in some of these areas. Maybe you had an uncle or uncles who stepped in. Maybe you had some other male that stepped in and gave you some of these things. But all of us are unfinished. All of us are undeveloped. But here's my point. Matthew 7 talks about this. Take out the mote out of your own eye so that you can see clearly to help somebody else. Well, we all have blind spots. That's basically what that's saying. Your blind spots are weaknesses. And those weaknesses can be exacerbated by things that are undeveloped in the stages of development that you've that you have to go through that are proper and that are good. So here's my suggestion, guys. Take a look at your past. I'm not telling you to dive back into your past and don't go do couch time with some psychoanalyst or something. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying be clear about what is the Lord working on you over. Because I'll tell you this, it's something that you missed along your journey. And that He's presently available to discipline you right now. Hebrews tells us clearly He's disciplining and scourging you to raise you up as a son of God, who can then in turn raise sons. And so that's the word of the Lord to you guys today. It's a word of encouragement because there's hope in it. God's here to do it to you, with you, for you, and to bless your sons. And also that you'd be the man of your home who's able to lift up your wife and bless her, protect her, speak life into her, to be as Christ to her, to pastor her. Man, there's a lot to this, and we need God for it all. So I know this is a little bit long, but I felt like all of this needed to be said as best I know how. So, hey, bless you guys. Love you. I'm praying behind you. And we will talk to you again soon. See you. Bye.